All right, this episode of Archispeak is sponsored by Arcat. Have you heard of them? Arcat is here to remind you as you get ready for AIA 19, the Conference on Architecture in Las Vegas, you don't have to gamble when it comes to finding great product information.
Don't take a chance with user-uploaded BIM files. Use Arcat's free library of families created by professionals. Why settle for generic or old CAD details when Arcat has up-to-date drawings of real products?
Don't roll the dice with old specifications from yesteryear and hope that the products your project needs are still available. Arcat has powerful search engine and free, constantly updated information. That's Arcat, ARCAT.com. And visit them at the AIA 19 at booth 5735.
And thanks to Arcat for sponsoring this episode of Archispeak.
Yeah, that.
And that too.
Anyway,
well, let's jump into
what
this.
are we talking about today?
I think jump into the technology that we were alluding to at the last one, but we didn't actually get to. And then I have some other stuff that I think is just kind of standout technology that we could talk about where we're talking, because the topic was the design process, right? And
I think so.
And so this could be kind of a thing. I put in a few things in here that are actually aimed at the design process, as far as like brand new technology. All right. So in the last episode, we didn't really get to this part because we just ran out of time. But I think the thing that we wanted to bring up when we're talking about the future of the design process is just tech that we're seeing that is kind of changing the design process. So I wrote down a few things that I thought it would be worth talking about in this show, but I'd also love to hear what you guys think and if you've seen anything. Where do you want to start with that?
Well, what did you write down?
So there's a lot going on right now in the tech space when it comes to just working on architectural projects, for sure. This is kind of like the golden age of what things that are changing. We mentioned it, I think, in the last episode, but I really think that in the next 10 years, the practice is going to be so different that it's going to be a little bit unrecognizable. I don't know how you say that. A little bit unrecognizable.
How so?
I tend to agree with you. In fact, I comment because when my son, was hinting that he might be interested in pursuing architecture as a career, I kind of told him, I'm like, you
didn't raise him right.
Hey, jeez, got to have a profession. Don't tell everyone to go away.
But one of the things that I was telling him was that the profession, if he pursues this profession, and I told this to, we just wrapped up our 5 months of, the ACE mentoring. I was telling them, I was just like, if you guys continue to pursue this, the careers that you guys have in architecture will be completely different than the career that I have in architecture, because you are literally at the golden age. You are, it's like, when we were going in from the, industrial revolution on into, a more technological revolution. I mean, that whole, the doors are opening to a completely different planet of technology that we're just not going to recognize our profession.
A lot of that, I think, is based just on because the economy is doing so well. There's so much investment going on in this right now. Mm-hmm. There's investment, and there are people willing to spend that investment money and develop things. I don't know how willing the profession itself is to adopt that kind of stuff. We're traditionally slow at adopting that stuff. So, and this is my job, is to look at where we're going and try to position us to get there in our firm. Right. But I really see the tug of war that goes on inside the firms too, of let's stay safe. Let's focus on what we know. And so there is kind of this internal battle going on. And so when I say I think the profession could be unrecognizable in 10 years, it's if we let go of the rope and say, take us with you. It's not going to happen if we hold on so tight until you pry it out of our cold dead fingers.
Evan, I'm curious. What do you think that battle is? Is it a financial battle? Is it
No.
We're worried about What do you think?
So there's two things that
battle
architects
is?
hate, right? It's the way things are and change.
I was going to say change. Let going,
The way things
let
are
going
and
of
change.
control.
Yeah. So
That's not very positive.
well, but it's true, right? Because I think a lot of it is you've got a lot of boomers who are upon the verge of retirement. Let's just call that within 5 to 10 years.
Right.
By retirement, I mean die at the drafting table. And so there's definitely like a fear there of don't change it too much because either I'll be obsolete or I'll be, I don't want to go into an unknowable future. And so I feel like a lot of it's just kind of an internal battle of, our firms do have multi-generational staff, and you've got a new young staff who's willing to try things and test and fail. And then you've got an older staff who is like, don't change this on me. I just finally got to the point where I'm comfortable. The economy's good. I want to retire well. And so like,
Just figured out how to open up Revit.
and I don't want to I totally get that. Right. I'm trying to have empathy and say like, I understand both these positions. And often I find myself in the position of the bridge between these different generations. Right. It's like trying to speak the language of both of them to each other. I feel like is a lot of the time my job to do. And I think that is kind of a Gen X job. Honestly, is just be the bridge.
Yeah, I agree. In a way, I've been talking about this. It's like, we've all kind of been positioned where we were at the threshold of the way people used to do it and the way people want to do it, in the future. We were right there kind of holding the door open and, kind of like need to usher people back and forth between them to kind of understand where we were, like we had talked about, in previous shows, to understand where we're going. Mm-hmm. And that's a great analogy. I mean, like just, talk about the Gen Xers being kind of the ushers. Yeah.
And so like getting back to your question, Neil, and the snide remark about the two things that architects hate, I really do feel like it is a self-imposed kind of like, we really don't like to change. And by the we, it's a big podcasting air quotes, it's architects, right? And we also we know we have to move into the next era. And so it is and I think we really still feel the scars of the last downturn, recession, depression, whatever you want to call it. And we know another one's coming. And so I think it's still pretty fresh in our minds. And so it's like, okay, we got to stay safe. We need to invest in things that we know for sure are going to matter when that happens. And we need to be well positioned for that so that it doesn't hurt so bad and we don't have to make as large of cuts. And at the same time, like the world is moving on without us. Right. So it's trying to figure out, because I mean, the research shows that architecture and construction is flat on the innovation curve and has been for the last 100 years, right? Like in comparison to other fields, I mean, of course things have changed technology wise for architecture, but on a very, very low rate in comparison to the other stuff that's been going on. You live in the Bay Area, Neil, you know what it's like up there. Like it's ridiculous, right? The amount of money being thrown at tech is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know that our next bubble is going to be housing. I don't know that it's going to be like a .com type of a bubble. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be either one of those necessarily, but I don't think that like they're definitely contributing to that what's probably coming. And I think that there's just so much fear around that this is why we're stuck in this I don't want to change, but I don't want to stay the same kind of mentality. Makes sense?
Yeah. It makes sense. I'm just wondering if what's going to break that logjam, or maybe it's just a slow process that'll take place.
It's going to be a combination.
Eventually,
it's going to be a combination of the next economic downturn and the way that we get out of that, the recovery, and the retirement of the boomers. Right. I think it's both of those things.
But at the same time, though, think about it this way. I mean, I get it. There is probably things that we want to, you said what, experiment, fail, and keep trying. We'll just say millennial, not in a bad term, but just the younger generation in the profession wants to do these things. And however, you have the boomers that want to protect what they've done. What I see though is that you have to keep making payroll, right? And what you have been doing is successful, and maybe you're right. Maybe it is just a part of fear of what's going to happen in the economy coming up. Who knows when? Maybe we are having this post-recession fear that we're in to make these types of changes. Some firms are actually, I would suspect, they're making those changes.
Sure. Yeah.
It's maybe just not as fast as the millennials want it to be. I don't know.
Oh, I think it's our clients too. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, both the clients are gonna drive change, and certain clients are expecting us to deliver. Think about the transition of just deliverables right now. I mean, some clients are expecting us, just like hand draw me a picture and just kind of explain it to me. But others are saying, I want photorealistic renderings. I want fly throughs. I want this animation so I can explain stuff. So you have like clients that are on one side or the other right now, and really when we do a better job of explaining the value of kind of like some of the, at the very minimum, these visualization type tools, and how these visualization type tools then kind of inform our delivery process, then later on inform our construction process and stuff like that. That's when we really start to push the changes. But not only do we need to sell the value of all of these things, but the contractor needs to sell the value of these things. They need to see. A lot of people just say, okay, I understand, the traditional design, bid, build practice delivery method. I mean, that's what I understand. It's comfortable. It's easy for me. And so that's what we've continued to keep doing, is that kind of comfort level of things. Mm-hmm. Because we don't, going back to Evan's comment, is that, we don't like change, because change is, I think we talked, a while ago about some of in fact, we even talked about it when we were discussing it with our interview with Shop, is we do things a lot of times based off of what we're allowed to deliver.
Yeah.
And if we're allowed to deliver just a 2D set of drawings to the permitting office, we're never going to change beyond that. We're just going to continue to keep creating 2D documents to send off to, the permitting department. But then when we later on get onto the construction site, and they never rarely ever look at our 2D documents because they want to look at the model, but we're kind of hanging our contract hat on the 2D documents, then there's a lot of disconnects that we've got to not just reconnect, but connect for the first time. That is, I think, one of the reasons why we're being prevented. In some of it's to our our own doing, but being prevented to actually being able to innovate and change.
There's definitely that side of it. Yeah.
We're totally in this weird little catch-22 where we're the maker of our own problems.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that one of the things that I see as well is, because of the last recession, we were forced to do the same with less, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got really good at it. People got very efficient, and it became kind of this exercise in efficiency, making efficiencies is everywhere we could possibly do that, while the rest of the tech world and other adjacent professions kind of took advantage of new technology to do that. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of behind the eight ball, because our clients are now coming to us and saying, hey, what's next? What are you doing that's exciting? What are you doing that's going to help us make these decisions? That's, they're looking for the new shiny thing. I mean, just say it, right? And we don't have the answers. And I think that we're not used to being in that position. Usually we are in a leadership position when it comes to driving these projects forward. And now when you have a client coming to you and kind of putting the spotlight and saying, show us what you've got, and all you've got is internal processes that make the thing that you do competitively better, that doesn't impress them, because that's just normal. That's just what everybody does. And so I think that there is some of that pressure. There's a lot of that pressure from the client side now saying, what do you have? Why should I pick you? And you can't just say, well, we're just as good as everybody else with all of these, the way that we do things. We actually have to be better in some way, or have something that, I hate it, but like the differentiator. What does make you different? What does make you better? And because they're having a hard time deciding between which firms to go with, because there is so much similarity, there's so much capability. So what's going to give them peace of mind to choose you? How are you being a leader in that way?
Well, then that also just, and this is a side thought that just popped into my head, but, if you can talk about what sets you apart as a leader, then that sometimes helps you overcome the things like, oh, you're a little bit more expensive than these guys, but, I'm able to get more out of you for that a little bit more. Because we're always, you're always up against the fact, and I don't want to go in this route, but, you're always up against the fact that clients spending money and they don't fully understand what they're spending the money on. And so they say, okay, Neil wants to charge me $150 and Evan wants to charge me $100. Mm-hmm. Why don't I just go ahead and go with Evan, because Evan's just cheaper? But, Evan may not be able to deliver the same type of product in the same type of expectations that, Neil can. But Neil has to sit there and spend most of his time of that $50 extra explaining to you why he's better, and that's why you want to spend that much money.
Well, you have to show where your value is. I mean, because it doesn't just go down to. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that people are willing to spend money if there's value there, because
that's where I was going.
You can always find a cheaper architect. We all know this. You can find a cheaper drafting service. There's the title of the show. But it's like that shouldn't be what. If we're in this for the long game, like the race to the bottom is a short race, right? So you cannot get stuck with that mentality of how can I reduce fees, unless you actually have like some amazingly efficient way to do that where it doesn't hurt your business, right? But I think most of the time reduced fees and stuff actually just hurt the business, and they hurt the profession overall. It devalues everybody. It doesn't just devalue yourself. So there are definitely people out there with kind of short-sighted mentality where they are willing to cut or do this for free or do it for cheap or do it, to get something better in the future. But they're also devaluing their competition. They're devaluing the profession. And I don't think enough people think about it that way. And so when I think about the future and of the design practice, and I think about where we're headed and talking about where our value lies, which we touched on the last episode, we have to come to terms like together as a profession that we want there to be a profession in the future, right? And we have to figure out how we're going to do that together, because I think working in individual silos of each company and we're so highly competitive, it really is kind of hurting the overall profession in that way. And there are things that I've participated in, like Large Firm Roundtable, which is the AIA's large firms on the technology side, at least, where people are talking about working together and they are talking about sharing resources. And that gives me some hope there. So we could go in a lot of directions right now, but I think when you're just talking about overall value, there are technologies that will raise our value, and then there are things that will make things more efficient, and we have to kind of move in the same direction at the same time, which is incredibly difficult when there's people trying to protect their retirement. There's people trying to, they're getting sucked up by the Googles and the Facebooks and the WeWorks and the high valuation VC funded work that's going on out there. I mean, there's just so many things pulling at us. And then there's the agencies keeping us where we've always been with the 2D submittals and all that kind of stuff.
All right. So
what
go ahead.
Dire future.
Well, I was going to say, is some of this technological change, and this is there's something I want to touch on here that we didn't get to last time, but is some of this technological change going to be driven by outside sources? In other words, they're not going to come from within the firm making changes. It's going to be people on the outside, possibly, had worked for firms and had a better idea. That firm's not interested in that idea, or maybe they are interested, but their firm's job is to get the work, do the work, make the money, do that, not side develop this technology. And so are people from outside the profession going to create technology that then we're going to start using to create these efficiencies and move us into a technological future?
Before we let the technologist talk, we sort of already are. I mean, there are people already out there outside, not just on the peripheries of the AEC, industry, but, in the technology industry that are seeing that we are not cutting it. We are not doing, what we could be doing.
They just see the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing it for us. Yeah. I mean, they're
not doing it for us. They're doing it in spite of us. And they're going to,
that's what I meant to say. Yes.
The future is wide open as far as they're concerned, right? They're like, go ahead and hang back. We'll show you how it's done, and we'll reap all the rewards for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of something I'm using, which is a service called PlanGrid.
Sure.
That I'm using to do my punch lists for.
Yeah, and
me too. For me, I mean, it's fantastic. So there's a service there. Now, could that have been done internally or developed? Possibly, but that it didn't. And so now there's that. And now there's something else I think would be kind of fun to talk about a little bit, but certainly on the new technology side is upcodes and what they're offering.
Developed by architects.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that is developed by architects. I mean, how Revit was created by architects. PlanGrid was an offshoot that wasn't created. It was created by basically architects and contractors and stuff that saw the deficiencies of the stuff that we were using. Upcodes created by architects. So there are stuff that is being created, but there's also and we can talk a little bit further specifically about upcodes because I got some thoughts on that. But I mean, it's something that's getting pushback from just the standard industry because it's an innovation that they're like, oh, but now you're infringing.
It makes me uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It makes my paycheck uncomfortable. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I just want to make a quick note that some of this sort of stuff isn't practically new. We mentioned PlanGrid, we mentioned upcodes. Neither one of those, or I should say what I'm trying to get at is that creating technology like this to make other architects or be able to share with other architects to improve the profession overall is not a totally new thing. I mean, you guys have heard of ArchiOffice?
Mm-hmm.
That's been bought out by another larger company and still offered and has developed over the years. But that was started by an architect in his office and slowly grew and then eventually ended up spinning it into a separate business, and he left the profession and went and did that. So, and that took place, over the past 20 years. So this isn't something that's new just in the last few years. People have been doing this sort of stuff to improve the technological side of our profession, has been happening for a long time.
Right.
I think that the firm of the future needs to diversify its offerings, and I think one of the ways they could do that is by creating things that scratch their own itch that could become productized for the rest of the profession or their customers. And I'm seeing firms do that. It's definitely the kind of thing that I think firms should be thinking of when they're trying to plan a path to the future, because we have to, I think, at least my firm, we're an ESOP, right? So employee owned.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about an ESOP and everybody's an owner, I would think that people within an ESOP should be demanding that their firm is investing in R&D for the future, so that they're around in the future. Because if they're not, if you're just going to continue to do things the way that you do things, and hopefully better, right? Like, honestly, but you can't guarantee that. Like, I think it was really interesting. Shout out to Charisse Lakeside. She works at LSW Architects up in Vancouver, and they have an incubator in their company where they incubate cool ideas by their staff, and they actually even provide a space for them, and they say, you know what, stop doing this project architect thing. That idea is awesome. Go try it out for a year. Work in this other space that's not on the same cube that you've been in, on the same projects that you've been in, because it's too hard to kind of divorce yourself from that kind of stuff, right? You can't really split your mentality when it comes to a big new R&D project. And they are doing that, and they've created like an electric commuter vehicle system, like this pod that goes from business to business and picks people up and drops them off. And it's all done within their architecture. It's like under the umbrella of their firm, but they have this side thing that they started, and they're coming up with ways to incubate future businesses that continue to contribute to the overall LSW Architects umbrella. It's super cool, right? And to me, like, not every idea is going to succeed, right? But it's being willing to invest in possible futures that are different from what you're doing now, so that you're guaranteed at least somewhat of a business in the future, because you could have these other companies come in. Like, Autodesk could completely change its business model, right? The company that we probably rely on the most. You're talking about Upcodes and the ICC, and there's who knows what's going to happen with the International Code Council and this lawsuit that they filed against Upcodes, and if it's going to stifle the innovation or if it's going to break it wide open. Like, there's just so many things that we don't know how things are going to go. And technically, like, architects are probably seen as red tape to almost every building owner out there, right? If they didn't have to deal with us, they won't, right? Like, people find a way, right? Life finds a way. If they see what we do as waste, even if it's necessary waste for the time being, like, it's not going to be waste in the future. It's not going to happen. And so I kind of think, like, if you're not trying to find innovative ways to do things that are very much future thinking, I don't know that you're going to be around unless you're a really small business in a really niche market and you do things a certain way that people seem to really love, and you can wade through the storms of economic downturns with that same business model no matter what. With the larger or the mid-sized firms, I don't know how they can do that. I mean, obviously the really big firms are just buying everybody they can, and buying all those clients and buying all that work so that they have a future. But man, talk about feed the machine kind of a mentality at that point.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a second. We've mentioned Upcodes a few times for those who may not know what it is. Let's at least mention what that is.
Yeah. So Upcodes is a website and a Revit plugin that basically allows you to do automated code checks. That's really kind of the basis of the business on your Revit model. So, and it doesn't check for everything. It just checks for a few categories that they've been able to figure out, right? So, like accessible clearances and jump in.
Yeah. I was going to say, it does that, but, I mean, a lot of times, and I was talking with somebody, and I think I might have even been talking with you guys about it, that a lot of times we live within the exceptions. Yeah. And so it doesn't really check exceptions and things like that, but at least it informs you of, okay, say you are dealing with a ramp and it's going to send you to, because I was literally just doing this past weekend with a guy in our office, and, we were trying to determine whether or not the handrail projection into a ramp that turns, and all the different handrail requirements and all that other stuff. And so, looking at Upcodes, we looked at it, and so it can tell you whether or not your code is or your handrails are meeting that code, but it doesnent really like say, okay, it meets the 1014 point 3 point whatever, it meets that, but it doesn't explain to you like the exceptions, and that where I was looking for exceptions, it at least guides me to a point where I understood exactly where I was needed to look, and then I just do the little bit of extra work to determine whether or not I conform to the overall code with the exceptions, or if I'm, just not code compliant at all. But back to what you were saying, and just to kind of like explain it big time, is, it is both a plugin and just a website. I've more been using just the web-based service of it, which is phenomenal because
you can search the code.
You can search the code, and as much
it's amazing
as
how innovative that is.
and as much as the ICC code website is fine, it still seems a little stale and stagnant versus, because like I'll go into Upcodes and let's say building code 2015 of Maryland. Maryland uses the IBC 2015, so I can do a fully searchable thing like that. Then it also like takes me through and it shows me all of the different resources for it, and it's a good innovative kind of code search.
Well, they've taken the user into account, and I think that's why people gravitate toward this, right? Versus the ICC and their BS lawsuit, which, I'll just say what I think about that. But it's like the ICC is trying to protect this copyrighted law, which to me is a total oxymoron, right? But anyways, Upcodes is trying to take the architect into account here and make it easy for them to access the information in a way that makes it not like the worst part of their job, right? Just to be blunt about it. And so like you're saying, like the UI UX kind of mentality of iPhone and Android apps that's come out of the last 10 years of software development is informing the way this website works.
Right.
Which the ICC is not, right? Because they're just trying to protect what they have and what they've had. And this other company is coming along saying there's got to be a better way to do this. And then to put on top of that, this kind of automated checking of a model for a few things is just making it even more valuable because it's saving me time. It's giving me hotspots to look at. Obviously, I still have to think of what my interpretation is and what my argument's going to be for potentially somebody seeing a problem in a certain area. But it brings those to light in a very fast way that I didn't have to look for myself, right? So
because at the very least, when that client is sitting there and they're saying, okay, I want to swing this door this way. And at the very least, you got this plug-in and you're sitting there and you're surfing around with them right in front of them. And they say, okay, why can't I swing this door this way? And you literally click on the door and it'll like give you the error of like, oh, you swung it that way. Well, that door swings into based off of the width of your corridor that you're trying to swing into. It'll give you an error and it'll actually tell you the code of why you can't do that. Because how many times do I sit there, and Neil, I don't know if you do the same thing, but when we're talking to a client and they ask us why we can't do something, and I'm telling them because of code reasons why we can't do that. And they're like, well, show me in the code. And I, will sit there and show them in the code. But I mean, it's a laborious effort to get exactly. It's this laborious effort to get to that point. And I can just say, click.
I'll get back to you on that.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Unless you've got it memorized.
And, thankfully, I'm walking around with the Ching building construction illustrated books. We have a few of those in our office that, like especially our specific team has. And, so we can like every time we walk into a meeting with somebody, we're always at least carrying that so that, since everybody's like visual learners, they're like, tell me why we can't do that. I'm like, I will tell you why.
I can show you why. Yeah.
Boom, here.
Yeah.
And it takes a little while, but,
definitely speaks their language better.
And you can almost guarantee that the reason why, the old ICC is all up in arms about this is they look at it and they're like, holy crap, why didn't I think of that?
Well, I mean, it's like, part that. It's part they're collecting all the money, right? And they want to keep collecting all the money. So it's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
So the question is, can you copyright the law?
Well, yeah, and the question is, do we want to get into that? Because
we don't need to get into it, but I mean that's the question of the lawsuit is basically the ICC writes the code, which is the law
that everybody has to follow.
That everybody has to follow, and they're using that text and making it more accessible. Essentially,
here's I guess the conversation, and Evan, you're probably right. Do we really want to get into this? So
I don't think we do.
I can understand their argument. It's like, you're publishing something that I wrote, but
it's the law.
But it is an adopted law, so
that you have to follow. Right?
Like, I can sit and quote, all day long the Constitution that I didn't write, but because it's now law, I get to quote it all the time.
Yeah, public resource,
without yes, exactly, without repercussion.
Right.
And so I mean, I can understand their initial argument, but once it becomes a law, it is public domain.
Yeah, it's stupid. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're totally right. And to me, so this kind of goes back to the conversation that we have about why it's so hard to innovate.
Yes.
In the AEC community, is because we're basically blocking ourselves from innovating, because whereas the ICC should look at upcodes and say, okay, great, maybe we sign some agreement
Partner
where
right.
Partner up with them, that they're losing an opportunity to innovate
totally
just because somebody's stepping on somebody else's toes, or at least or perceived toes.
They don't. Why? I mean, yes, there's the opportunity to innovate, but they're not paying for this information, and ICC is generating this information, and they are going to keep all the money. Why should they partner up with somebody else to do this? Or, I mean, they could do it themselves. But I just think it's an interesting. I agree. It's probably not something you can do to copyright law, but at the same time, they're creating this stuff. They put it out there, and somebody else is now basically using that to generate money. So, it's an interesting
they're making
question.
Money off of, laws that are being created.
Yeah, actually, I think that's part of the issue too. Is that because they're a VC funded company, Upcodes is, that they're doing all this for free right now. Nobody knows what their future kind of monetization will be.
True.
So.
Right.
That's
obviously
true.
They're going for a market share and innovative stuff, and presumably they'll be charging in the future because it'll be the thing that everybody wants, right? I mean, that's why they're doing this too. I mean, they're not just doing it because it's a better way to do it. They're also doing it to be the first ones to do it. So,
sure,
they want to get that market, corner it for sure.
But it's definitely what's interesting about this is that, as far as new technology, it's really kind of using web-based technology essentially to modernize our access to the code.
Well, yeah, the foundation of the web is equal access for all, right? I mean, it's
right.
open, right? So they're trying to build on that platform instead of the closed nature of.
But I mean,
what's been there.
When you look at the code, you could buy the books.
Yep.
And or you could buy a PDF at one point, right? Or everything on a CD-ROM.
Or you can buy a web access.
Right.
Oh, you can buy web access. Okay. But is it, now I've never done that. I don't.
Well, there's products like MadCAD.
As efficient?
Yeah. So we have a subscription to MadCAD, and MadCAD, depending on the number of,
it's
logins
very
that
expensive.
you have. Oh yeah. And what you, like, there's several different levels of access to certain things. Like, do I want access to all the different code? The entire IBC suite. Do I want, and think about the additional subscriptions to things like having, different like the fire codes and all these other things, and so you can go to MadCAD is one of the ones that we use, that we've got subscriptions for. But I mean, you have those, and those are the things that, and I don't know how MadCAD is, whether or not how they are, any different in a way than, unless MadCAD is, associated with
paying
the ICC.
For it.
I mean,
maybe they're paying for it.
Oh, they are, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe that's what, right?
So I just logged into MadCAD, and it's the paid content,
right?
Is ASHRAE, ASTM, ICC, IEEC, all these different, NFPA, SMACNA, USGBC, you name it.
Is it as convenient or easy to use as what Upcodes is currently offering?
No. I mean, it's basically a searchable document. And
it's a database.
It's a database. And so, like, if I go in and I type in, like, aisleway ramps, just like I went over to Upcodes and I'm sitting here and I'm like, and I typed in, the search for aisleway ramps, Upcodes gives me the same information, and it, is a navigatable part of the code. You can surf through, and MadCAD somewhat does the same things. I will say that both on the, is it aesthetically more pleasing and a lot easier to surf through, Upcodes seems to be a far more user friendly than MadCAD is, because MadCAD is very, just like it's database. It's just a database. So it's so you flip through and all this other stuff. But,
so you're saying MadCAD's more Windows 95?
Yeah, Windows, yes.
Windows 98 maybe?
Windows 3.1.
So I mean, if you go on to just MadCAD and you look at the way that the database is to surf it and all that other stuff, it is very,
it's awful.
Yeah, it is. It's as hard, sometimes as daunting and painful as, the code book is to sit there and flip through it. And even if you've got the commentary code book, but there is something about the ability to be able to take Upcodes, plug it into your model, and it literally like search your model with their AI engine to like search through and say, okay, Neil, you just drew this door. Guess what? That door isn't in compliance. Why isn't it in compliance? Is because of this.
What's interesting to me is also kind of the thing that I don't think people really talk about when they talk about a thing like this, is that you're uploading data to Upcodes, and Upcodes is obviously using that data to train through machine learning, their AI engine that you talked about. And so why is this service quote unquote free? Because we're training it. Just like when you get that CAPTCHA document on a website to log in, and it's like, prove you're a human by clicking on all the traffic lights, and you're training Google's self-driving car engine. When you do that, this is the same thing. You're providing data to them, and to be later charged for this service, of course. So you're providing your data for free, and that's probably in the end user license agreement that you click yes on because you don't read it. But you're providing that data to them to train their system to be better and more useful for us in the future. But realize that the trade-off is that it is going to be charged for at some point, and they're using your data to do that if you decide to be a part of this. So that is kind of like the truth behind so many of these things nowadays, right? Where they're quote-unquote free while the thing is being trained, and then once it's deemed good enough, it will be released for probably a pretty expensive ticket, to ride that train. So
you look at it and it's just like, it's got all codes, code update inserts, local amendments, full search capability, section bookmarking, project page collaborations, account administration panels, concurrent users, and then it just kind of keeps going on and on and on. But I mean, it's like all of these different things that basically, if you walk around and look at like all of probably yours, just like our code books that like have all these little tabs of all these different things and all these other things, and you're doing all of this stuff. And this is kind of sort of offering a very similar thing to it, but in probably a more intuitive and kind of a learning based, background than what we're doing. So it's basically taking everything that we've been doing, as
analog,
code
in an analog way,
in an analog world, and putting it as a digital AI based thing that will help everybody.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I honestly feel like this to me is the most valuable future that we could build for ourselves and be a part of building. And a reason why we would choose to support a thing like this, or a thing like Hypar, which is a new service that's being developed from the guy who created Dynamo for Revit and a partner, Anthony Hawk and Ian Keogh. They're developing this thing called Hypar, and basically the idea is like open sourcing a lot of this information. And I'm not saying Upcodes is open sourcing it, but like just thinking about it from that mentality where it's like the building blocks of architecture need to be available to all architects, so that we don't continue to live in this non-innovation way because everybody's doing it their own way. Everybody's building their own systems, and so they're trying to build these platforms that enable all of us to get to the end result faster and do more with less so that we can spend more time doing great architecture. And like when I'm thinking about like the tools that I'm building in HMC's digital practice, not just me, but my team, we're trying to create things initially, at least, that were the low-hanging fruit so that you could spend more time doing the thing that you really want to do, right? So
right.
I honestly, I feel like that's really where these platforms are headed, and why we should be excited about them and not be scared by them is because they ultimately, I think, will make us more valuable. But there needs to become a tipping point at which the majority of firms out there support this kind of thing so that they can work to our benefit and that we can all use them to our benefit, and realize that that is not really where we need to be protecting some particular IP, because everybody, this is like baseline standard stuff, standard of care kind of stuff, man. Like, could we please get beyond this so that we can change the world with our architecture and not get mired in this, this lawsuit-ridden, risk environment, this high risk environment that we're so scared of, and we're constantly pushing farther and farther out in front of us instead of just dealing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. What does every single solitary building constructed at the very minimum in our country needs to be? Code compliant. Mm-hmm. So if that's the baseline that every minimum. Building has, the bare minimum, why not make that part the easiest part? Yep. Why not make that one, let that just be just a standard that everybody uses and just kind of move on? Now, how do we get people to embrace things like that? The biggest thing is that if you were able to generate, and I think we've had this conversation before, but if we haven't, we should, is what is one of our biggest hurdles? The code officials. Mm-hmm. And being able to sit down with them and literally walk through an entire model with them with an AI, that when they say, hey, I don't believe that this is, code compliant, and you pull it up and you can highlight why, you feel it is. And then,
or you could take 2 weeks with back and forth emails and visits to
2 weeks.
Oh my God.
Wow. You're being generous.
Yeah. 6 weeks, 6 months. But yeah, I mean, honestly,
setting up a meeting to, figure out who's going to be in that meeting, then, coming to a meeting, then coming back to a meeting.
What you're saying is
these are just the pre-meetings.
Let's address this and move on quickly. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing concept there.
And think about how much, their life would be so much easier, because, why does something take upwards to 6 months to review? I mean, we're building in on our project right now, we're building in almost a year for review process.
Yeah.
A year.
Well, I bet you they're scared to death of this kind of thing too. Right.
It's not going to get rid of
my job. Yeah.
I mean, it would just be able to make. I mean,
it's augmenting. Think about it. That's how I present this. It's augmented designers. It's augmented QA QC. It's all that.
The city makes money off of the review process. You've got to pay your fee. You've got to take it in there, and you've got to go through the whole process. And if it takes X amount of time to review this project, they're only getting paid for that one particular project. So if they can say, all right, well, I can handle like maybe 5 in a month, and then you give them and you charge, $100 per those 5. Now you just made $500. But now you're like, oh, well, I can do 5 in a week, or I can do 50 in a month. Well, guess what? Now you've made that much more money if you charge the same amount. So you're
to bring it back to that 30,000 foot level, you're putting more, hopefully, good architecture in the world by doing that faster and more efficiently.
Yes.
Right? Like if you bring it back to like that basic tenet, which we talked about in our last episode too, which was if we can focus more on that early stage design and that design intent and delivering that over and over and over again, you're going to be putting better stuff out there that actually deserves to exist. I would hope.
I will say that, I've got people working on our team that spend a lot of time. I mean, a lot of time on doing the code research and creating code sheets and doing all of these things and ensuring that everything is meeting code compliance and all that other stuff. And if I can take all of that time that they spend on these big projects, from doing all of this code research and finding out whether or not the building's in code compliance and all of the little details are in code compliance, and basically automate at least that portion of it and put those people's time and effort into making a better building, I would much rather do that.
Totally. You gotta kind of pull back, and you gotta look at it from that level, though, to be able to see that as a potential future. Man, I feel bad we didn't actually get to some of these other cool things. We really went down the code tangent there, but maybe worth just mentioning, and we could provide some links to some other cool tech that, is really starting to shape the future of the design process.
Yeah, and I don't think we're not going to not talk about them in future episodes and stuff. But, I mean, what I think we sort of focused on in the codes, really, to be quite honest with you, at the base level.
It's a good place to start, actually.
Is a good example of why we're so slow to be able to adopt things, because of all of the different roadblocks that kind of like stand in our way, and give us an example of why sometimes we don't spend a lot of time in innovation, because we know that there are so many other forces out there that kind of prevent us from doing some of the things that we probably really know that we want to do.
Yeah, but I would also argue that there are tons of things that we can do right now that don't have the kind of risk that we're talking about, and we still don't do those either. Yeah, because they're a new way of doing things, a different way of doing things. They're not making the way we already do it more efficient all the time, even though a lot of them are. Right. And we get fearful, we get comfortable, and one of the things that just came to light recently when I was at our all firm event that we just had, where everybody from all of our offices came together for a day. We had a keynote speaker named Mike Robbins, who wrote a book called Bring Your Whole Self to Work. And one of the things that it was kind of a nuanced way of communicating the old cliche of getting out of your comfort zone, right? Which is easy to say, and a lot of people agree with that. But then, it also kind of brings to mind, like, how do you really get out of your comfort zone completely? It's like jumping out of your comfort zone, and now it's back over there, and I don't need to worry about it anymore. It's not like that, right? He said, you lean into your discomfort. And I thought that was a really great way to put it, because it first of all, it acknowledges that there will be discomfort when you're trying to do these new things, and that we need to address that and just say that out loud, but agree that it's going to be uncomfortable. There will be discomfort. Let's lean into it. Let's see what happens, and let's start taking on some things that are going to impact us in the future in potentially huge ways. Like we said when we started the show out, like, I don't think that in 10 years that this is going to look anything like it does right now. And even when I was teaching the class at Cal Poly, and I was basically, emerging technology, talking about all of the jobs that exist now that did not exist 5 years ago, and bringing in people to talk about these things. And these were not jobs that existed in architecture 5 years ago. In the next 10 years, this constant evolution, this ramp that we're on, that is not the giant sea change of hand drawing to CAD, or from CAD to BIM, or what most people are just doing 3D drafting, right? But this is an actual continual evolution. It's not a big step, and I think that this is like the hockey stick part of the graph that we're on all of a sudden, where it's going to be, you can't compare what we're doing now to what we're going to be doing in 10 years. It's going to be that different. And so if you're not kind of leaning into your discomfort with that, and just acknowledging that constant change is the only kind of change that we're going to be experiencing from now on out. And if you don't, you really are going to not be around in the future. So you have to decide if you want to be around in the future. And if you do, you have to start enabling people to do that kind of exploration, and that take that initiative and run with it. Because, man, if they're willing to run with that discomfort and live in that space, then allow them to. Right? Because if you don't, I mean, there are very high chances that you just won't be around anymore, or you're going to just be racing to the bottom, right? You're going to be trying to do it for less and less, which we all know, like, if if history shows anything, it's that we actually put more time into our projects now than we used to. We design to a higher level of detail than we ever used to. And that's being demanded by the clients and by the contractors. And, if you don't have every little thing shown in those models, then it's not going to get built like that. Right. So if we're going to be doing that, that's also something that we need to be very aware of if we're going to continue to operate in that way where we do take projects through completion. Man, you're talking about, you've got to give people the opportunity to experiment and figure these things out and potentially fail, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. The dire truth, I think, but I think it's worth saying out loud.
Yeah.
But I think there's tons of opportunity out there, man. And I think why you don't have to allow somebody else to figure it out for you. You have the ability to, you probably have people working for you right now who want to do this stuff. And it's just kind of exposing that unseen talent or desire, and just getting to know your people better so that you can find out if they have those tendencies. And chances are you have people already in your office who do.
Right, because there are a variety of different interests within the architectural world that provide us. There's somebody sitting in your office right now that says, would I much rather be developing some automation to our software to make these toilet room details that you're asking me to draw a lot easier
over and over again on every single project.
Exactly.
Right.
Or do you want me to just keep drawing them over and over and over again on each project?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Things like that. And again, that isn't cool on the outside world for clients, because everybody does that, right? It's expected. But but if you don't do that stuff, you go out and promise clients that you can do great stuff. If the infrastructure isn't in place to deliver the great stuff, if people don't speak the language that you're speaking internally, then you're screwed, right? So you do have to do both. You can't just pick what I call the rainbows and unicorns that look really great on the outside. You actually have to do the hard work on the inside too, so that everybody can come with you. Because if you can't, you'll never deliver the stuff that you want to do, that you want to impress your clients with. So it is a double-edged sword. You got to go down both paths at the same time.
And our clients are becoming more sophisticated now, and they are expecting that.
Totally, because they're forced to do the same.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We've got clients that are multifaceted, multi-headed, different boards and things like that we have to deal with, and they're innovators in their fields, and they're looking for us to deliver something and be the innovators and in our field and show us something different. Say, okay, a building is a building. Show us how this building is more than a building, and show us how you've innovated the way we do things, so that it's just not just bricks and mortar, but it's bricks and mortar that have a little bit more substance and data driven and so on and so forth.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe next time we can get to even more of these cool tools of the future of our profession. But for now, I think let's call it a wrap.
All right.
Wrap.
All right, so real quick, I want to give you guys a quick rundown of what I just experienced. I just got back from New York.
New York City.
New York City.
New York
Get a
City.
rope. Yeah. Pace picante sauce.
Oh, man. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah, so I'd put in a proposal to speak at this conference called AEC Live. It's put on by Building, Design, and Construction magazine, which they do some really cool stuff. They have an online magazine. They have a print magazine. HMC's been featured in it before with different articles, so we've definitely kind of established a relationship with them over the years with our communications team. But I submitted for a talk there. HMC, our regenerative design group, spoke there last year, so we kind of knew what it was like. And so I submitted a talk, and it's really about kind of like it's similar to what we're talking about in our episodes, where it's the future of AEC. and they really want to highlight kind of the what's next. And so I wanted to try to do something completely different than that, which was not, I mean, I'm not showing off a tool. I'm not showing off, a piece of software. I'm not talking about a new process. I'm talking about how do you change. I wanted to kind of give an authentic, kind of vulnerable talk of how do you change a 79-year-old firm via, digital transformation. How do you transform a firm into the digital age? Not that we're not doing digital stuff or haven't been. I mean, we've been doing this stuff for a long time, but how do you start to think like a startup, or how do you start to think like a modern, firm of the future? Because there's so many firms out there who want to do the same thing, right? I mean, right. You're talking about the 1% that go to these conferences who are showing off these new tools. Who are those firms, or those startups, or those consultants who are doing that kind of thing, versus the other? I think I worked it into my talk, but I had heard right before I went up, like I heard it that morning that BD plus C did a survey, and it was like 40% of firms have no clue how they're going to do it. And so when I heard that, I was kind of relieved, right? Like, okay, my hypothesis is trending toward correct. Like, man, there's a lot of firms out there who are like, help us do this. And my stance is, I want to help you do that, because even though I have no stake in your company, if we all do it together, kind of what we talked about this episode, then we have a better chance of being around in the future, right? So that was really kind of the thesis behind it, was like, let's talk about, it is kind of a pep talk, an inspiring pep talk of, we are changing. We're 79 years old. We're figuring out how to do it. There's no roadmap. So follow along, participate, contribute. We're going to do this together. And so they accepted the talk, and man, I was pretty stressed out about it, because then I had to deliver, right? In the beginning, it was just an idea, and then it turned into, okay, you're doing it. And so how are you going to do it? And I don't need to get into like all the details about how we actually pulled it off, because ultimately I think it went really well. It was well received. I was like 4th in the lineup on the first day. And so I definitely practiced a lot and kind of took a completely different approach to how I normally give talks. I think a lot of these talks, and I've watched them, BD plus C puts them online, so you can see the last 2 years of talks. So kind of knowing that the audience is bigger than just the people in that room as well was also important to me when I was kind of crafting this idea. But overall, I wanted to take a completely different approach than the talks that I have before. So I really wanted it to be more about a story, like a storytelling kind of exercise. And I didn't want it to be kind of like delivering data points on the graph of, here's how much we have innovated in the past, here's how we're measuring this, and here's what we've seen the trends are. And I didn't want it to be like that. I feel like a lot of talks about technology are like that, and they're talking about, what I call like the hit reel. It's I actually started the talk off with in a world, this is the movie trailer. This conference is a movie trailer for the profession, where you often see the best lines, and sometimes even the plot is revealed in the trailer. It's like, this is just the highlight reel. You're seeing all this amazing stuff, and I wanted to be real with them and say it's not all like that. And so like, let's take a step back and talk about how we actually do the hard work that's involved in changing a firm. Because it's important that we do, because if we don't, we're not going to be around in the future. So I kind of set it off by saying, in a world where this conference is the highlight reel, let's talk about what it's actually like to transform a firm, and the kinds of things that we can continually do, like ask ourselves, why do we do it this way? Man, we have a long history. We're very successful. We've always done it this way. So we're not going to just change for the sake of change, but we're also going to say, is there a better way to do this stuff now? And I think a lot of times it can be something as simple as asking those questions in your firm. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it went really well. My slides did not match up with what I was saying at all, which is really risky, right? So it really does become kind of a storytelling, and you've got to get the story right, and you've got to communicate all the ideas that you want to communicate within the 15-minute time limit. And It can't just ramble on, go down tangents. And I don't have any slides to really read from, which would be discouraged anyway, right? And it wouldn't be as authentic. So that's kind of was my behind the scenes struggle was because my idea was to do it as a choose your own adventure, like the books that we read as kids, right? And if you choose this, then you're going to go to page 53, and if you choose that, you're going to go to page 37. And so I had these kind of thought provoking questions up on the screen where not allowing the audience to choose the answer, but kind of leading it down a certain path where understanding that every choice that you make has a different outcome potential, and it's going to lead you somewhere. And so I think some of the questions are obvious, and then the other ones are a little more nuanced, right? It's like, do you want to be around in the future? Like, that's obvious, right? Yes, we want to be around in the future. But then there's some other nuanced questions like how much do you invest? And these weren't questions I asked. I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. But it's like, we don't talk about this stuff out loud very much. Like, a lot of this stuff is just kind of decided because that's how we've always done it. And we're going to continue to do it that way. But I think if you do take a step back and think about these things from a larger perspective, you might wonder why you continue to do things the way that you do, if you really just say it out loud and think about it. I don't know. I'm talking a lot. You guys, What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was curious. I mean, how well received was it?
It was, from what I can tell, it was well received. It's really hard. I think it's funny. I just recently saw something where, Oprah has interviewed everyone in the entire world, from somebody who did something in their community, that nobody knows about, to a world leader. And she said that everybody always has the same question when they're done. How did I do?
How did I do? Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of what you walk away with when you're done with one of these things. Hey, how'd it go? And so I haven't heard any critical feedback, which I wouldn't be opposed to. I think but it's kind of like first nature for people to give you positive feedback. Right. So we'll see. It'll go online soon, and I guess, we can put a link to it when it does. But I'd be interested to see how you guys thought it went once you actually see it. But the feedback that I got right after it was, and I even got some questions because there was a Q&A panel afterward for the first 4 speakers. And so when I was up there, the first question came to me. It's like, so how do you actually do this in your company? Or I'm trying to do the same thing. What would you see as a first step? And so beyond that, I did have people saying, that really resonated with me. I really liked the approach that you took. And to me, I wanted to engage the audience, and I wanted them to go away inspired. I didn't want to paint a dark, dreary picture, kind of like I felt like we just did in this last episode. But I wanted to inspire them and walk away like, I can do this. And that was really my intent with it. So hopefully that happened. And I mean, I'll wait and see when the larger audience gets a piece of this, to see what you guys and they think, because to see if that was successful. Because I would like to continue to give this talk and kind of become that cheerleader for firms out there to do this together. Because if we don't,
absolutely.
I mean, it's going to be an opportunity for me to tweak it and make the talk even better if I can get some good feedback on it. So I don't know. Other than that, New York was rainy for the most part, and I got a day of sunshine where I walked around and took a lot of pictures. But it was pretty cool to visit Hudson Yards for the first time since it's open.
Oh, yeah.
How
did the vessel
Dubai in New York? Yeah, the billionaire's playground. It was. I feel split about it. It's a neat experience for sure. But it's also just like completely ridiculous, that they're spending money on that kind of stuff and not solving real problems.
Do you think that this folly is something that draws people to the area that, could be a economic stimulus? Or, I mean, is it just, like an oddity? I mean, it's
like the Oculus. It's like the Oculus. It's an attractive mall right there. It's a very attractive mall. Big Neiman Marcus sign in the background.
Oh, yeah. All right. Awesome.
So
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know how you love that. But it's a neat experience. It definitely is a draw. I mean, they're trying to limit how many people are in it at one time because it is such an attraction right now. I don't know if it'll always be like that. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful for sure. It's eye-catching. It's a great selfie spot. It's like the black hole of selfies happens right there for sure. It's right. the event horizon. Like once you walk in, you can't not do it. No selfies will escape. But it's one of those things where it's like, is this really what this place needed? Because I love that city. I mean, and I love to be everywhere in that city. I love to walk the city and get around and see all the different things. And like this definitely gets people to that part of the city. But I think the High Line already did that in a much more successful way. So was this really necessary? I folly is a good word. I don't know if it's not necessary at all. And to me, it was like, it's an incredible expense. And is it actually bringing dollars to be spent into that area? I kind of don't think so. Not on the magnitude of the number of people who are visiting it. I mean, maybe it's bringing some, but
and you ask, like what value does it bring to the site? I mean, because I know that we mocked it because me personally, I mocked it because I was like, oh look, it just looks like a occupiable pine cone, and it's just a thing in the thing. And I'm curious what the thinking was behind actually creating it and it being there, because I've spent so much time in the past decade of like working on projects that are so budget conscious and for in public schools and public welfare and benefit, that I see things like that, albeit very cool and albeit very interesting. What does it do? What value does it bring? Is it anything, or is it just something to just be?
It's kind of a playful thing, right? Like people are definitely there to experience it and to experience it with other people. I mean, I wonder what the quantity of photography is happening there at all moments of the day. It's got to be off the charts, right?
Oh, I'm sure it's insane.
I don't know if it'll be like that forever, but yeah, did it need to be that expensive? Like I always go back to like the iPhone and the fart apps, right? Like why are you spending your time making a thing that has no value to society at large? Why aren't you solving a real problem?
Right.
With that,
right.
With that effort, with those dollars, with whatever. I mean, because man, New York's got them, right? It's got the problems for sure, and so does everywhere else. But that to me is always kind of weighing in the back of my mind as I'm walking around this thing, trying to get to the top and having a good time doing it. So yeah, it's like, and what's hilarious is that I don't know if they had or are having this public naming competition for it now, because the temporary name they say was the Vessel. So there was like some ridiculously funny Twitter conversations going on about what to call this thing, and they're so funny and yet so vulgar you can't say them out loud, like hilarious stuff. So just search Twitter for the Vessel naming competition, and you'll find some choice
in
names.
So we should do that too. What should we name the Vessel? I mean,
anytime you do a public naming competition for something, it can go so wrong.
You get Bodie McBoatface.
Exactly.
So, Piney McPinecone face. There's my contribution.
Stairs face.
Since I call it the pine cone anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it in the same way that the Chicago bean is, this. What's neat about that is it reflects the environment around it. I mean, with its polished copper shell in the Vessel's case, and with its polished stainless shell at the bean, it's like that's what's so. I think people, maybe it's narcissistic. People like to see themselves in the thing,
right?
I don't know if it's narcissistic or if it's just, reflective of its surroundings in a very positive way. But that is probably the neatest thing about it, is to watch all the people come up and stare at the thing, and they're trying to find themselves in it. And
the bigger question is, do you have a selfie of you reflecting in?
No, I don't. I didn't do that. But I watched a lot of other people do that. And I think that's kind of a neat perspective to take as well when you're doing this kind of thing, is because I've always kind of admired the photographers who get the shot of the people looking at the thing, not necessarily the shot of the thing, because that's a reflection of what's actually happening in the moment.
Right.
And so I did shoot some time lapses and stuff of people kind of walking through it and under it and
cool.
kind of staring up at it. I think that's kind of a neat perspective, because there's always going to be another opportunity, I think, to experience it in different ways. But I like to kind of take that perspective sometimes and do some people watching. Mm-hmm. So I actually have a shot of like these people who I'm up at the top, and these people are looking down into kind of the cavern on the interior. And it's one of my favorite shots of it. It's just, it's trying to imagine what their experience is and what they're thinking, and what are they looking at? What are they feeling? Are they talking about how good this thing is or how bad this thing is? Right. It's kind of fun to think about it in those terms sometimes. Anyway, overall fun trip, lots of travel and lots of rain, and I love that city. I can't wait to go back again. But
yeah, we were just talking the other day about how, if we just want to do like a day trip, how easy it is for us just to take like a little day trip to
just take the train, right? Yeah.
Take the train, drive up, whatever. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. So, it's an easy one for us.
Yeah, you should.
What's fun? Actually, what's fun and easy for us is, and I was just commenting about why I do kind of enjoy the East Coast and the opportunities that the East Coast affords, is because, think about it, just at least from like where I'm at, the hub that I'm at around DC, you've got all of the DC things that you can see, but then think about it, start radiating out into maybe just 4 hours, let's just call it that, it's 4 hour drive. And where can I be within 4 hours of all of this stuff? You can be in the deep South, you can be in Richmond, Virginia, you can be on the beaches, you can be, hell, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Anywhere in Delaware, you can go up, and you're in Jersey, you're in New York City.
It's because all of your states are like little baby states. They're like
we are trying to overcompensate.
You got little postage stamp size states over there.
That's right. Man. We don't try to overcompensate. It's there.
Like if Neil and I both drove 4 hours, we might overlap, and we're in the same state.
If you drove south 4 hours and Neil drove Neil drove south.
Yeah.
If Neil drove south for 4 hours and you drove north for 4 hours, would you two meet?
Yeah, I think we would. We would just.
I think we would. Yeah.
It'd be like
Santa Barbara.
Now that's closer than 4 hours.
Many of our East Coast
for me.
friends started to drive 4 hours, and I started to drive 4 hours. We could meet up, we could have lunch, we could go hang out.
Yeah,
and go do
you could do
stuff.
Exactly. Cool. Well, maybe the next show, the stuff will be live, and you guys can have watched it and give me some live feedback on the show.
There you go. Ooh, we could do a commentary track.
Yeah. Mystery Science Theater 3000 style.
There you go.
We just mute it, and you can make up what I'm saying.
Sounds like
if
fun.
Based off of the slides that didn't match up with your talk,
yeah,
we could give a talk based off of that.
Totally.
And just see how
that would be great. That's a great idea.
Actually,
there we go.
And you would get 2 talks out of
That'd
it.
be funny. Yeah, each one of you guys. I could just send you guys the slides, and then you could come up with your own talks for it, and then let's see how different they could be, and give you like a 10-minute time limit.
No, we'll do it together, and just your talk will be the talk you gave, and then our talk will be the talk of the slides.
There you go. All right,
and then
cool.
we have the after dark version that Cormac does.
Yeah, save yours for after the show. Yeah.
Exactly.
That'd be great. All right, let's do it. Let's make that a thing.
All right, I'm there.
Next time.